The streets of Los Angeles were alive with movement. Tourists flooded Hollywood Boulevard, their laughter blending with the distant hum of music from street performers. High-end stores glittered under the golden afternoon sun, their glass windows reflecting the world of the wealthy and privileged. But for Marcus Carter, none of it mattered. He sat hunched on the corner, his back against the cold brick wall of a luxury boutique. His jacket was thin, barely holding back the evening chill, and his sneakers, the same ones he had worn for over 2 years, had holes big enough for his toes to peek through. In front of him, a cardboard sign, written in faded marker, read, "Hungry. Anything helps. God bless." He wasn't expecting much. He had learned not to. Most people walked past without a second glance. Some hurried their steps, pretending not to see him. Others crossed the street entirely, as if homelessness was contagious. And then there were the ones who whispered cruel remarks under their breath. Bum. He should get a job. Probably just wants money for drugs. Marcus had heard it all before. And what hurt the most? None of them knew his story. They didn't know about the factory job he had lost when the company downsized. They didn't know about the rising rent that had forced him onto the streets when he couldn't make payments. They didn't know that Marcus used to have a normal life. A small apartment, a steady paycheck, dreams. Now he was just another invisible man in a city of millions. He let out a slow breath, glancing at the few coins in front of him. 75 cents. Not even enough for a cup of coffee. His stomach clenched painfully. The last meal he had was yesterday morning, a half-eaten sandwich he found near a dumpster. He had spent the day watching people come and go, wondering what it would be like to walk into one of those fancy restaurants and order whatever he wanted. But dreams didn't fill an empty stomach. Marcus knew he needed at least $1 to get something small from a nearby food stand. So when he saw a tall, broad-shouldered man walking toward him, he took a deep breath and gathered what little courage he had left. He wasn't the type to beg aggressively. He never followed people, never reached out, never made anyone uncomfortable. All he did was lift his eyes and say, "Excuse me, sir, can you spare $1?" And in that moment, everything changed. Because the man stopped. Not only that, he turned to face Marcus fully. And as the man lowered his sunglasses, Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Because standing in front of him was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. For a moment, Marcus forgot how to breathe. He had spent years watching people ignore him, dismiss him, walk past like he wasn't even there. But now, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was standing in front of him, looking directly at him. Marcus had seen The Rock in movies, larger than life, playing heroes, warriors, and men who could take on the world with nothing but sheer determination. But he never imagined he'd be face to face with him, especially like this, a broken man sitting on the sidewalk, holding a cardboard sign. For a second, Marcus regretted speaking. What if The Rock just laughed it off? What if he ignored him like everyone else? What if he said something like, "Sorry, man, can't help you," and walked away? But then, The Rock did something that shocked Marcus to his core. He crouched down. The towering Hollywood star, the man worth hundreds of millions, the man with fame and power beyond imagination. He didn't look down on Marcus. Instead, he lowered himself to his level. And when he spoke, his deep voice was gentle, kind. "What's your name, brother?" The Rock asked. Marcus swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. "Marcus," he said hoarsely. The Rock nodded, studying him for a moment. He glanced at the sign beside him, then back into Marcus's tired, sunken eyes. And then he smiled. Not a forced, uncomfortable smile. Not the kind of smile people gave when they felt sorry for him. A real smile. A human smile. And that alone was enough to make Marcus's eyes burn with unexpected emotion. He couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at him like this. Like a person, not just another homeless man on the street. "All right, Marcus," the Rock said, reaching into his pocket. "You asked for $1." Marcus nodded, still too stunned to speak. The Rock pulled out his wallet, but instead of handing Marcus a single bill, he said something that left him speechless. "How about I do more than that?" Marcus stared as the Rock stood up and extended a hand toward him. "Come on," the Rock said. "Let's get you something to eat." Marcus's lips parted, his mind struggling to process the words. "Wait, you're serious?" "Dead serious," the Rock said. "I was about to grab some food anyway. Join me." Marcus hesitated. This had to be some kind of joke. Most people wouldn't even spare him a glance, and now one of the most famous men in the world was offering to take him to lunch. His stomach growled painfully, reminding him that this might be the only meal he'd get for the next 2 days. Still, doubt gnawed at him. He glanced down at his dirty clothes, his worn-out sneakers, the grime on his hands. Was he even allowed in the kinds of places the Rock ate at? The Rock must have seen the hesitation in his face, because he clapped Marcus on the back and grinned. "Don't worry about all that, man," he said. "You're with me. It's all good." With that, the Rock turned and started walking, and for the first time in a long, long time. Marcus got up and followed. They walked down the sidewalk side by side. People stared. Some whispered. Some pulled out their phones, taking pictures and videos. Marcus's anxiety spiked. He had spent years trying to disappear, trying not to be noticed, and now people were watching him like he was someone important. It felt surreal. "Why is everyone looking at us?" Marcus asked quietly. The Rock chuckled. "They probably recognize me." Marcus blinked. He had completely forgotten he was walking with a global superstar. They stopped in front of a small casual diner, the kind of place that smelled like home-cooked meals and fresh coffee. The Rock held the door open and motioned for Marcus to go in first. The warm, smoky scent of grilled burgers and fries filled the air, making Marcus's stomach twist with hunger. He had almost forgotten what a real meal smelled like. As they approached the counter, the cashier looked up, and her jaw dropped. "Oh my God," she gasped. "You're—" The Rock grinned and held up a hand. Yeah, it's me," he said casually. "But don't make a big deal, all right? We're just here for some food." The cashier nodded frantically, her hands shaking as she grabbed a menu. "Of course. What can I get for you?" The Rock turned to Marcus. "Order whatever you want," he said. Marcus hesitated. He had spent so long surviving on scraps, digging through garbage for leftover meals, that he didn't even know how to order anymore. Finally, he pointed to the menu. Just a burger, I guess. And some fries?" The Rock raised an eyebrow. "That's it?" Marcus nodded. The Rock chuckled and turned back to the cashier. "All right," he said. "He'll take the double bacon cheeseburger, large fries, onion rings, mac and cheese, and a chocolate milkshake." Marcus's jaw dropped. "But—" The Rock grinned. "Trust me, man. If we're gonna eat right." The cashier rang up the total. The Rock handed her a crisp $100 bill without hesitation. "Keep the change," he said with a wink. Marcus just stood there, stunned. And that was the moment he realized. This wasn't just a meal. This was kindness. And kindness, real kindness, was something he hadn't felt in years. They sat by the window, their food spread out across the table. Marcus picked up the burger, his hands trembling, and took a bite. The second the food hit his tongue, his eyes watered. It was the best thing he had eaten in years. As they ate, the Rock leaned forward. "So, Marcus," he said, "tell me your story." Marcus hesitated. No one had ever asked before. No one had ever cared. But as he looked at the Rock, really looked at him, he saw something rare. Genuine curiosity, genuine kindness. So, for the first time in years, Marcus told his story. He talked about losing his job, losing his home, the shame of being homeless, the fear of never getting back up. The Rock listened, not just nodding along, not just pretending to care. He really, truly listened. And when Marcus finished, the Rock said something that left him in tears. "Marcus," he said, "I believe in you." Marcus sat there, burger in hand, staring at the Rock in disbelief. "I believe in you." Those words hit him harder than anything he had ever heard before. It had been so long since someone looked at him as more than a homeless man, more than a burden to society, more than someone who would never make it back. His throat tightened, his vision blurred. Marcus had promised himself years ago that he wouldn't cry in public, that no matter how hard life got, no matter how hungry, how cold, how invisible he felt, he wouldn't let the world see him break. But now, sitting across from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a man who had seen success, who had climbed his way up from nothing, Marcus felt something inside him crack open, and before he could stop it, the tears came. Silently, they spilled down his face, one after another. He wiped at them furiously, embarrassed, but the Rock simply watched him with quiet understanding. "No shame in that, brother," the Rock said softly. "You've been carrying this for a long time." Marcus exhaled shakily and nodded. The Rock leaned forward, resting his massive arms on the table. "Listen, Marcus," he said. "You asked me for $1 today, and I could have just handed you a bill and walked away." Marcus nodded again, still unable to speak. "But I'm not going to do that," the Rock continued. Marcus furrowed his brow. "Why not?" The Rock smiled. "Because you don't need $1, he said. "You need a chance." Marcus's breath hitched, and then the Rock dropped the bombshell. "You said you used to do construction work, right?" Marcus blinked. Yeah. I was a laborer before I got laid off." The Rock grinned. "I got a buddy, owns a contracting business. He's always looking for hard workers." Marcus's heart pounded. The Rock continued. "He's hiring, and I can put in a call for you, right now." Marcus felt his entire world tilt. A job, a real job, a way off the streets. Hope flooded his chest, so overwhelming that he could barely breathe. But just as quickly, doubt crept in. He glanced down at himself, at the grime on his hands, the holes in his shoes. He hadn't worked in years. He didn't even have an ID anymore. "You really think I can do this?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. The Rock laughed. a deep, hearty laugh that made the whole restaurant turn their heads. "Hell yeah, Marcus," he said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You got the drive. You just need someone to bet on you." Marcus exhaled shakily. No one had ever bet on him before. Until now. After they finished eating, The Rock wasn't done. "All right, brother," he said, standing up. "Before we get you working, let's get you cleaned up." Marcus blinked. "Wait, what?" The Rock grinned. "I know a place. Let's go." Marcus followed him out of the restaurant, still in shock. Was this really happening? They walked a few blocks, passing store after store, until The Rock stopped in front of a sleek barber shop. The glass windows gleamed, and inside, men in leather chairs were getting fresh haircuts, hot towel shaves, and trims from expert barbers. Marcus's stomach twisted. This place was way too nice for him. But before he could object, The Rock opened the door. "Yo, fellas," he called out. "Got a special customer today." The barbers turned, and their jaws dropped. "Holy, The Rock? Man, what are you doing here?" The Rock clapped Marcus on the back. "This guy right here?" The Rock said, nodding at Marcus. "He's getting the VIP treatment today." Marcus stared. He had never been a VIP in his life. For the next 2 hours, Marcus experienced something he hadn't felt in years. Care. The barbers treated him like any other customer, not like a homeless man, not like someone broken, but like a person who deserved to feel good. They washed the grime out of his hair. They shaved the stubble off his face. They trimmed his overgrown hair, shaping it neatly, giving him a sharp, clean look. And when they spun the chair around to face the mirror, Marcus barely recognized himself. The man staring back at him looked strong, capable, like someone who could rebuild his life. His throat tightened again. "Damn," he whispered. The Rock grinned. "Told you, man." But he wasn't finished yet. "Now," The Rock said, standing, "let's get you some fresh clothes." Marcus's eyes widened. "You're kidding." The Rock laughed. "Brother, do I look like I'm kidding?" And with that, they hit the mall. The Rock didn't just buy Marcus a shirt or a pair of pants. He bought him a full wardrobe, new jeans, fresh shirts, a warm jacket, a sturdy backpack, a new pair of sneakers that actually fit. For the first time in years, Marcus felt human again. As they stood outside the store, shopping bags in hand, Marcus turned to The Rock. His voice shook. "Why are you doing all this for me?" The Rock's smile softened. "Because I can," he said. "And because someone once helped me when I needed it." Marcus swallowed hard. "How can I ever repay you?" The Rock clapped him on the shoulder. "Just one thing, brother." Marcus nodded, hanging on to every word. "When you're back on your feet," The Rock said, "pay it forward. Help the next person who needs it." Marcus's chest tightened. He took a deep breath and nodded. "I will," he promised. And this time, he meant it. Marcus started work a week later. Within a few months, he had his own small apartment. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, but he was alive. And it all started because one man saw him. One act of kindness can change a life. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories Unfolded. Tell us in the comments, would you have done what The Rock did?